Okay, so this is my presentation about the critical knowledge and skills of special education administrators. So from the start of the semester, we looked at different leadership styles, and I still believe that special ed administrators have a situational approach to leadership. That means that in different situations, they demand different types of leadership. The leaders must adapt their style of leadership to the situation at hand. Leaders could be delegating, supporting, coaching, and/or directing, depending on the situation. I feel like that goes along with any administrator. You can't always use the same approach for every single issue that you're dealing with. Every person's going to require something different. Okay, so what do they do? My belief is that special education administrators build relationships within the school and the system. They make sure that programs are aligning with state requirements. They are motivators and support systems to the teachers. They mediate disputes between parents and teachers or schools. They attend district and state meetings when new information is reviewed. They implement changes, and they conduct meetings. Their purpose is to provide support and training to the special education teachers under him or her. They are to keep education current in order to ensure implemented programs are effective. This also has to do with the idea that they have to evaluate learning and teaching data to ensure that implemented programs are effective. This is really important that administrators do this because they may choose a program that they feel will be effective, but without evaluating the learning and teaching going on, they won't know if the program is effective or not. And keeping something in place that is not effective is not helping the school to get better. Another purpose that they have is to thoroughly understand special education rules and policies. Okay, so for administrators building relationships, I said that school administrators have a role of fostering positive relationships amongst all of the individuals within the school building. Strengthening relationships amongst the adults that work within a school influences the character and quality of the school and on student accomplishment. Something I found on the educational leadership improving relationships within the schoolhouse article was that if the relationships between the school administrators and teachers are trusting, generous, helpful, and cooperative, then the relationships between teachers and students, between the students, and between teachers and parents are likely to be trusting, generous, helpful, and cooperative. If, on the other hand, relationships between administrators and teachers are fearful, competitive, suspicious, and corrosive, then these qualities will disseminate throughout the school community. I have seen this firsthand. I've worked for 3 different school principals and lots of different assistant principals. My most recent school principal last school year did not have a very good approach to other teachers. She seemed to come across as she was cutting you down. She did not seem to provide a lot of support, and you definitely saw the tension start to appear between her and other teachers, as well as between teachers and their fellow teachers. This school year, we had a replacement of school administrators, and the administrator that has come in has seemed to be very trusting. She's very open. She talks to all the teachers frequently and listens to their concerns, and the whole school climate has seemed to change based on that. It's very interesting to see what a role those administrators play on the teachers in the school. Another job of the special ed administrators is to implement change. School administrators are typically the people who address the staff when it is time to implement changes, new programs, and new approaches to teaching. However, that is not always an easy task. All of the staff do not always adjust to change easily. Administrators deal with pushback and some negativity. When this happens, they have to be able to confront those teachers, listen to their concerns, and also be able to implement a plan of action with those individuals. The administrators have to be positive and proactive in their approaches so that teachers feel comfortable sharing their concerns in the future. Luckily, these are the type of administrators that I currently work for. They have an open door policy. If their door is open, you are always welcome to come in and share whatever you need to share. I've never had anything that I felt like I couldn't go to them with, and they always help to implement a plan for us to make things better or to resolve issues. Okay, so another role of special ed administrators is to conduct meetings. When administrators are conducting meetings with staff, parents, or a combination of both, it's important that they follow a timeline to stay on track. Meetings with special education teachers and parents can very easily get off track, and they can tend to last for a very long time. I've had IEP meetings last for 3 and 4 hours sometimes because of the inability to keep the meeting on track. It's easy for parents to focus on an issue and to talk about that issue for an extended amount of time. Prior to starting the meeting, if you're setting objectives for the meeting, as well as important topics to cover, it gives people an idea of what you will be talking about. Also, checklists can help ensure that everything gets covered. In the timeline, you can devote a certain amount of time to each topic, which will help you to move on. If you've already spent 20 minutes on one topic, it's easy to say, okay, our time is up for this topic. It's time for us to move on. At the end of the meeting, they should also help to set a plan moving forward. Okay, dealing with discipline is another thing that special education administrators have to deal with. Dealing with discipline issues for students with disabilities can be a difficult task. If a child with disabilities is removed from his or her placement setting for more than 10 days, services must still be provided for the individual. Administrators have to be sure to have consistent discipline policies and procedures in place. They need to be sure that they are ensuring that students with disabilities are provided equal access to public education. They need to document, collect, and safeguard formative data about the child's behavior. They need to budget and utilize adequate funding for programs for students with disabilities. And they need to organize and implement a staff development plan to prepare all teachers to work effectively with students with disabilities. There are a lot of issues that go along with disciplining students with disabilities, but having these things in place will help to avoid a lot of those issues. Okay, another job of special education administrators is to manage federal funds and special education budgets. IDEA funds are to be used to supplement state and local funds directed towards providing free and appropriate public education to students with disabilities. This can cover things such as extended year programs, training programs, assistive devices, supplies and materials, speech therapy, audiological services, and much more. When managing the special education budgets, administrators have to look to consolidate programs by focusing on student needs, use competition to drive down contracted service costs, take advantage of Medicaid billing, overestimate expenses and underestimate revenues to help create a cushion, spend federal revenues first prior to IDEA funds. Okay, another task for the administrators is to evaluate SPED staff. A formative evaluation framework should be used to observe and evaluate staff. They should establish instructional priorities with teachers at the beginning of the school year. At my school, we do this through a survey online. We put in different goals that we want to make for ourselves, and it gets sent to our administration so that they can see what we are working on. Some schools may decide to sit down one-on-one with their teachers and talk through those instructional priorities together. There's lots of different ways that can be done. The administrators should observe each special education teacher at least twice throughout the school year in the educational setting, and at least once during an IEP meeting. During that observation, they should be documenting data. After the observation, they should analyze and interpret the data. A post-conference should then be held to review the data with the teacher and discuss a way for the teacher to improve moving forward. I feel like this is the most difficult part for the special education administrators, is telling teachers how they can improve. A lot of times, the difficulty that I feel that the administrators have is that they are not in the classroom all day. It's easy for them to think that things would work, but then when they see teachers try to implement it, they have a difficult time supporting it because they don't have the experience of working with the students with special needs. Okay, another job that they have is collaborating with other administrators. One of the priorities for special education administrators is to get to know the superintendent. That is the person that you need support from to approve different things within the system. You also have to work with your school principal on understanding special education programs and services in the school building. You have to encourage other administrators to develop building-wide discipline plans to comply with IDEA for students with disabilities. You also need to provide trainings and positive behavioral supports for all administrators. And you need to be sure that all administrators are on the same page for inclusion of students with disabilities in the general education classes. So that is a lot of different things that special education administrators have to be sure to do. And of course, there's also a lot more on top of that as well. My vision for the future, if I was to become a special education administrator, some ideas that I would be sure to focus on would be establishing a school-wide discipline plan that complies with IDEA for the students with disabilities. I would focus on the inclusion of all students with disabilities within the general education curriculum. This seems to be a difficult thing at my school. A lot of teachers have a hard time wrapping their head around that our students with disabilities are still supposed to be included in the general education classes. So it's taken a lot of education from the special ed teachers to the general education teachers to get the support for that to happen. Another thing that I would like to do is to foster positive relationships amongst school staff members. I would want to designate funds in the budget to appropriate trainings for special education staff. And I would want to ensure that I was using checklists and timelines when conducting meetings to ensure that the meetings are productive. And that is about all that I have for special education administrators. Thank you.